here it is, everyone. Going a little bit off the beaten path here, but I'm going to walk you through making a $20 humidor for $20 today. So I started with this acrylic kitchen canister that I purchased on Amazon. I think it ran about $10.99. We've got a drain strainer. This was $2.99 at Menards. That is going to go in the bottom of this once I get some water pillows. And this eBay purchase, it's hard to not buy these in bulk, but I have a round or circular humidistat. So time and time, or not time and time, I'm thinking of smoking meat here, but temperature and humidity level. So opening that, you could see I kind of did it a little bit before you. We've got the drain, got that part. We pretty much got everything unboxed, and the water pillow, which will go at the bottom. So also, one thing I did leave, you'll see at the bottom of the jar, out of this was the cost of the hole saw, which I had to buy because you'll notice on the hole saw container, I have a step drill bit and everything else, and I actually didn't have the size I need. So just mic it depending on the size of the humidification gauge that you purchase. So first step I did was just unspring the lids to separate it from the actual base unit so it's easier to handle and you're working with one single small piece, because you'll see there's not a lot you do with that. I removed the seal, noting the direction that it came off of because it did have a slight taper to it. And then with the circular top, I realized I had to find the center of it. So thinking back to my geometry days, but before I did that, I coated the entire thing in tape. And the reason I did that was because I didn't have a dry erase marker, so I was going to use a Sharpie. So I just covered the top with painter's tape so that it would minimize the chance of there being any residue in there. And I could also really get in there with my finger and my thumb so you could still see the edge of the lip or the rim. So I know my camera still has issues focusing. So I did this about 3 strips of tape. And if I remember right now, because this is about a week or two later, it had, I needed a little bit of tape for the edge for the one side. So when you need to find the center of a circle, you draw 2 random chords, not parallel to one another, and then you will find perpendicular bisectors. So find the center of those lines, and you'll see me do this in a minute. Make sure you have a 90 on there, and then wherever they intersect is the center, and that's where you drill. So pretty simple. And believe it or not, I did use a YouTube video to find that and create it. So with the tape in, the edge has been depressed and thumbed in there so you can see it quite clearly. We have to find that center point. So kind of like I was just saying, this time around, I've got a right angle. I've got a center punch and this guy. So I used square to just mark out my 2 chords essentially. So I picked somewhere where I thought it would be easy, and I did luck out by randomly getting 3 inches on each. So it was quite simple. So I went all the way to that center lip, and then I just picked another random area, not parallel again. Otherwise, you have to go all geometry on it a little bit harder there. So after this, what I did was I measured, there we go. I had to measure the length of the chord I drew, which is about 3 inches. So I mark at the 1.5 inch mark right there. You'll see very shortly. And then I did the same thing with the other chord, where I believe I also ended up 3 inches, or it was like 2 7/8 or something like that. So it wasn't horrible. With that being done, now I had the center points, or I'm sorry, the midpoints of those lines. This is a pretty crude way of doing it, but it was late at night and it was cold in my garage. So found the halfway point and then just made sure it was at a 90. And I also went opposite the direction that I taped so that I didn't lift up the tape edge. And you'll see me dragging my finger on those tape lines. So you could tell the direction, and that's the direction that you want to draw with your pencil or your marker so that you don't bump those edges of the tape. So there we go, setting my 90. And then with those two perpendicular bisectors, the point that they intersect is, in fact, your center of the circle. So those guys are 90s. And I'm going to mark that down so I can show it for you because that's the teacher in me. There's my center point. And that's it. There's my 90, halfway through. And that is roughly, notice how I say roughly because in the end it wasn't quite perfect, but neither am I. Then I just did a slight, well, I checked it for center. Slight indentation with the center punch. Oh, and I also measured here. It was very, very close. I think my slight offness was due to the fact that the tip of the pencil was quite wide, so I didn't have the sharpest line. So I kind of corrected it, and then I didn't do a huge hard smack. I just did a gentle smack because this is a hard acrylic. It's not like a soft plexi, so just a couple taps, and that's all it took. At this point, then, I got my drill bit out, and I drilled a pilot hole to help prep for the hole saw. And that pilot hole kind of guided things a little easier. And the cool part was, depending on your preference, you could do this on the workbench like I did. But then thereafter, you can pull the tape if you want because you already know your center at that point. And it looked pretty centered here. You know your center at that point, and then you're able to just hit it with the hole saw. So the tricky part with mine was I assembled the hole saw that I had to buy. And then the thought was, do I hole saw it with the hand drill or do I hole saw it with the drill press? And the drill press is behind the camera, and I was going to move the camera and try to do everything, but I ended up doing it with the drill press. It was just easier. I could guide it in slower, and I ensured the fact that my table was square, and with it being level, I made the straight 90. So with the mic here, or a caliper, sorry, I'm measuring it's 1.6, and you'll see the hole saw is also just out of screen. But it was just about the exact same. So that's some Bush League amateur stuff right there. But the idea was I locked the caliper, I locked the caliper and then I slid it on and everything lined up good. So after that, you could see none of the hole saws were the proper ones. So I just grabbed the centerpiece, had to unwrap it, which was surprisingly difficult. And then I assembled it and drilled it. So here we go, unwrapping that new one. Ace Hardware, thanks. Had to purchase that. It was $12. Ay caramba, for just the hole saw, but it's a bimetal one. Research online proved that a bimetal hole saw would be your best bet for cutting into acrylic or not plasti, I'm sorry, Lexan or acrylic like a plexi, and that's what I did. So with that in mind, I'm getting set up at this point. So I do put it in here, and then I kind of got scared. So you can see I had it locked, set, and ready to go. And then my brain was like, I don't know about this. So I'm thinking drill press, and that's what I ended up doing. So here we are. Post drill press, I decided to go with the drill press just again because it was more square. At this point, then I'm excited. We see a somewhat centered hole, and then I can start peeling the tape. And the big thing also is don't push too hard to avoid pressure cracks. And I think I have two tiny slight pressure cracks on mine, but they're barely visible due to the ledge of the humidistat that goes in there. So pretty good. So at this point, I'm just peeling tape, and there's not a whole lot to say. And then once the tape has been peeled, I take a good look at the hole that was made. Should have used a water lubricant to cool it to prevent some of the melting, or have just perhaps adjusted the drill speed, but didn't want to mess with that. So checking the center of my hole, realizing at this point it was close. It was not perfect, but it wasn't too far off either, which was phenomenal. So happy with that. Time was to move on. Also kind of check the fitment of the humidistat. And then, sorry, I'm dusting books as I'm talking here. Then I realize it's got that nasty edge, so I run and grab my childhood X-Acto knife set. And what I did here was a brand new sharp number 11 blade. Um, and there we go. I've had that since I was like 8 years old, so that's a good 30 years old. And I slowly start removing the edge with that knife. So I think it was at this point I got some of those stress cracks. And those stress cracks were just from me kind of pushing that knife against that lid too hard. So my bad there. But what I'm doing is, dagnabbit, just out of camera, I'm slowly dragging the knife around the edge of the hole, and I'm removing the like kind of, I don't want to say knurled. There's a word I'm trying to think of what is best, but it's kind of a raised edge of melted plastic. So flashing, perhaps. So let's just call it flashing. I'm going around scraping, removing the flashing, and really wish I panned up at this point. And then just checking with my thumb or forefinger, going over those edges to make sure they're nice, flush, and flat. So there you go. Now you can kind of see what I'm doing. So very gentle. Did this all standing, not sitting down. I think if I had it on the bench, it may have been a better idea. So that's all that's going on. So once I have that perfect, I did yet another test fit of the humidistat, and then it was kind of beginning the reassembly process of the whole thing. Since then, I've also been testing with a certain type of cigar, a fragranced or flavored cigar, which I don't keep in my traditional humidor so that it doesn't kind of infuse odor or flavor into some of my other guys that I can't really talk about. So there we go. It was at this point, I was looking, it came with these little tabs. I broke the little tabs off. You can see me throwing the one over there, and then it dropped in perfectly. The tabs are locking or snap in place tabs for different types of items, but what I did at this point is was super stoked with how it fit. And then at a later point, it was flipped over, removed, and reinstalled with a caulking or silicone sealant that is anti-mold, anti-fungus, like a bathtub or shower, clear, which resulted in a perfect seal. As I've been now maintaining 70 degrees at 70% humidity um, for the cigars that were totally dried out, so it's been phenomenal. So right around that edge is where I caulked it with some anti or waterproof sealant, silicone sealant. So at this point, it's just a matter of getting the ring back on, just out of camera again. Sorry, everybody. I thought I had it figured out, but the ring is back on. And then it's just a matter of bending the tabs back into right there, just like that. And then hopefully it goes in and down, which it does. It locks. And at this point, we are like 9/10 of the way done with this fun little humidor. You could slip it out in the kitchen, see if your wife notices, next to the brown sugar that there's some brown cigars there. The shower drain, make sure you find a stainless steel. I went non-painted as well. Peel the plastic backing. And you're not really going to see this unless it's empty, so you don't have to really worry about the markings. But avoid Amazon for these. Go to a hardware store or a big box like Amazon. Or, I'm sorry, avoid Amazon like Menards, and you could purchase these for like $3. That's the trick, because otherwise they're 9.99 to like 18.99 online. So maybe I'll start buying them and reselling them on Amazon. Who knows? So simple as that is, there's our nice little grate. Now you got to be careful dropping it in because of the machined edge could take a nick or gouge out of your acrylic container. And if I do remember, I will drop links to all of the items in there. The water pillow, as I clear the tools. Water pillow, I did remove from the bag, which I ripped trying to open. But that was soaked for, I think it was 30 seconds in a distilled water bowl. It puffed up very well, and then it ends up being placed underneath the shower grate, which allows just the right amount of moisture and humidity to transmit up through there into the canister portion of the humidor. Um, And if you
Do
do
does it
go
taste
with
taste like
unwrapped cigars in here,
okay, but it seems a little
so you'll
unsweet.
also notice I did gel
Maybe
side
maybe
up.
Auntie
If you
Michelle's
do go with unwrapped
recipe
cigars, I
says that
recommend
you
them
just
putting
put that
them
down there while it was
cap
cooking.
side up
Maybe
and like
not to nap with him ever
the
again.
open
It's
end
not too
down,
bad
and the humidity
because in
kind
the
of
real
goes
world,
up
men
through
make a
there
really good couple.
and just
Can't say that.
humidifies all the cigars. So
Not anymore.
this is what the final product essentially is
Steve's
without the
cooking better.
caulking.
Can still
And
smell
if
it.
I can pull it
Steve's
off of
better.
my phone, I'm going to end this
Okay.
with
Hey, you know what?
the
Crazier things have
best
happened.
view
No,
of,
literally, they have.
yeah, the $20 humidor with a fully
Look,
stocked
he's coming in the morning
um,
to look at some
bit of
restaurant menus, and
cigars
he's
and a
coming in at
70 and
10.
70. So
He's
you could
sitting
tell
there
it's
with
60
me.
degrees in
Now
my
we're
garage,
cooking.
42%
He doesn't
humidity
do
from the
anything like I
propane
do it
heat.
with him anymore. Look,
Slightly
I
elegant.
want bed
If you
early
have a
morning.
laser engraver,
I'm
that
like,
would be a cool thing to do at this point. Deck it out with some badass stickers and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So please don't forget, hit like and subscribe and become part of my channel. Thanks, everybody.